Hi, I'm Samantha and I am the librarian at Missoula College. I'm going to talk to you today about avoiding plagiarism and citing correctly. First off, the best way to avoid plagiarism is to take really good notes while you're doing research and while you're writing. Keep track of where you get your information. For some people, you can do this in a Word document. Others might like to use note cards or pieces of paper. I personally like to print out the articles that I'm citing or make copies of title pages of books and jot notes down onto those as to what I'm citing and where I got my information. But what you want to do is keep good notes so that you can cite correctly back to any external resources that you're using in your writing. This includes, I should say, images if you use a photo to illustrate, just as much as it includes journal articles or things from books or magazines or newspapers. If you're not sure how to cite something, or if you've done it correctly, be sure to ask for help from the library, the Academic Support Center, the Writing Center, or your instructor. All of us really want to help you get a handle on this idea of citing correctly and avoiding plagiarism. So basically, to summarize, when you want to avoid concerns about this issue, you're going to want to cite anytime you use an idea that isn't originally your own. This flowchart can maybe simplify issues a bit. If you are using another person's words directly, as we see in the first column, you're going to want to quote it directly with little quote marks around it and cite it. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. If you are using not another person's words, but another person's idea, that's called paraphrasing. We're going to talk about that in a moment too, and that's when you're going to want to cite as well. If you're not using another person's words, you're not using another person's idea, it's all coming out of your own head, then there's no need to cite. So this can be very confusing, and like I said before, we're all here to help. So if you wanted to talk with an instructor or with a librarian about what you're using and how we can help you determine in some ways what you need to cite, what you don't, and how to best cite it. But another thing that can help you determine whether you're paraphrasing or not is called signal phrases. And these are things you might want to add to your writing to clarify where your ideas are coming from. Then you may catch yourself actually writing some of these phrases, and then it can indicate to you as well that you're borrowing an idea from somewhere else. So if you have the author of XYZ acknowledges that, or agrees, or believes, or claims, or argues, or demonstrates, all these other examples here on the screen show that you're summarizing or paraphrasing another idea that you've gathered from an authority on your topic. So that will lead you into using others' information, and we'll talk about how to cite that particularly in a moment. The other example is if you're quoting directly from a source. Usually this is pretty obvious to you as the writer, but here's some ways to indicate that, to sort of flow into it, to make your writing a little bit more proper, and also to indicate to readers that you're quoting. So-and-so states, quote marks, blah, 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 in the book or the journal, blah, blah, blah. This author maintains that, quote, whatever phrase, according to this author, quote, and then there's the information. So this is probably a little more straightforward for most of you. The idea of citing is also an area of tension for students and can be confusing. We've got a guide on the library's website that I'll give you the address for in a moment. But there's a couple different ways. And what's called parentheticals is usually what indicates to a reader that this came from somewhere else and here's some information to help you find it. This first example here is a direct quote, and it says Mila, parentheses 1993, which is how you would list the author's name, and then you'd always, with APA, want to put the year that it was written in parentheses right after the author's name, like that. And then it has quote, or found that, quote, the placebo effect, which had been verified in previous studies, disappeared, blah, 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 end quote, parentheses with a page number, and then the period. So that can be confusing to remember to put quotes, parentheses, page number, period. That's something that usually instructors are not terribly picky about, but you do need to get those page numbers in there to show the good faith effort that you're trying to quote this person directly. If you're paraphrasing, you'll want to do the same thing. If you're using the signal phrases that we saw with the author's name, you'll want name, parentheses, year. The example that's in the middle here, the author stated, there's a direct quote there, but if you summarized something that the author stated, you would put a parenthetical after the summary or the quote, author's name, comma, year, comma, page number. And so those are the two main ways. If you don't have a page number, for example, if you're really summarizing a whole of an article, you just put author's name and year. So I understand that this is confusing, and we're all, like I keep saying, here to work with you. We've got an online guide at this address for more information and assistance with citing correctly. On this page as well, there's contact information for the reference desk at the big Mansfield Library on the Mountain campus, and they're there till 2 a.m. most days of the week, can help you out with any questions you've got or any needs you might have. And you can always contact me directly at samantha.hines@umontana.edu.